Good morning, everyone. In our last class, we were discussing about the basics of the IAR filter, and after discussing the basics of the IAR filter, we have taken an example, a simple IAR filter. That is having only one pole and one zero. Yeah. So we are having see pole at z equals to a and zero at z equals to 0. Okay. So we have looked into this example, and while we were looking into these examples, we discussed about 3 cases wherein in the first case the pole was within the unit circle, in the second case pole was on the unit circle, and in the third case the pole was outside the unit circle. And from there we realized the filter and tried to find out the impulse response of the systems. Okay. Now from there we have found out that when the pole is within the unit circle, at time tending to infinity, the output of our system was dying down, and the amplitude of the system was tending to 0. Whereas when the pole was on the unit circle, the signal was neither going out of bound nor it was dying down to 0. Okay. In the last case, we found out when the pole was outside the unit circle, we found that there was an increase in the amplitude response, and at time tending to infinity the amplitude would have been the infinite. So that means the filter system would have become unstable in nature. Then we just discussed about the 4 types of the IAR filter design methods: the impulse invariance method, or invariant method, bilinear transform method, frequency transformation method, and approximation of derivatives method. So these are the 4 types of this IAR filter design method which we will be covering in our current class. Okay. Now in the first case, today we will be discussing about the impulse invariant method. It is also sometimes regarded as impulse invariance method. Okay. Now one important thing is that when we are trying to develop this IAR filter, we will see that most of the filters, they are being designed after getting the information from the analog filter. Okay. So after having the information from the analog filter or the analog system, we try to design the digital system. Okay. Now, since we are trying to design a filter taking the information from the analog domain, we need to keep in mind that the characteristics of the analog filter is such that this analog filter is stable in nature. If it is unstable, if the analog filter itself is unstable, then the digital filter what you will be designing, it would also be unstable in nature. Okay. So while designing the IAR filters, you need to be careful. You need to have an understanding about the analog filters, and you have to analyze that whether the filter is stable or not stable. If it is stable, then only you can go for the digital filter designing using that analog filter criteria. Okay. Now coming to the impulse invariance method. So herein what we do is that we design the filters by placing poles and zeros in the Z plane. And how do we do that? We do that by emulating the information from the S plane. Okay. What information you want to emulate from the S plane? The information about the location of poles and zeros. Okay. So after having an information from there, then only we can go for the designing of this one. Okay. Now herein the how do you design it? The designing is taken place in such a way such that for each pole in the S plane you have a pole in the Z plane too. Okay. Now say for example, if you have a transfer function, a simplistic transfer function of 1 by S minus P1 where Pi, where Pi it is a it is the location of the poles, because if you see over here also in the analog domain also we have the transfer function HS, and we can have S minus Pi where Pi gives us the location about the pole of the filter. Okay. Now if you get this kind of equation 1 by S minus P1 Pi, then while designing the digital filter using the impulse invariance method, we need to replace this 1 by S minus Pi to 1 by 1 minus e to the power Pi t Z inverse. Okay, where this capital T is nothing but the sampling period, which if the sampling period is not given, you need to check out whether the sampling frequency is given or not, and if the sampling frequency is given, you need to calculate the capital T. Okay. Now if we equate S minus Pi equals to 0, we get S equals to Pi. Okay. Similarly, in the Z transform, if I have to find out the location of the pole, then what I have to do? I have to do, this is the equation, 1 by 1 minus e to the power Pi t, then Z to the power minus 1. Okay. Now we have discussed that while trying to find out the poles and the zeros of a particular transfer function, we need to have the Z in terms of Z to the power positive integer. So in that case, we will be having, we can transform this equation to Z by Z minus e to the power Pi t. Okay. Now if you equate this to 0, you get Z equals to e to the power Pi t. Okay. And that is what it has been given written over here. If S is equal to Pi, if there is a pole and that pole location is given by S equals to Pi, then in the digital filter it would be transformed into this form, Z equals to e to the power Pi t. Okay. However, we also know that what is S? From our knowledge from this Laplace transform, we know that S equals to sigma plus j omega. Okay. However, while discussing the designing of the digital filter, I told you that herein we will be discussing about the two frequencies. Okay. So we will represent the frequency omega, this one, the first one, for the analog frequency, and the second one, this omega, it would be for the digital frequency. Okay. Now herein, when we talk about this Laplace transform is applicable for the analog domain. So we can write S equals to sigma plus j omega. Okay. And from here we can write it down that z is equal to e to the power st, because we have written that s is equal to pi. So we can write it down z equals to e to the power st, and then we replace this value of s over here and we get e to the power sigma 1 plus j omega 1 bracket close capital T. Okay. Now if you convert this into the real part and the imaginary part, so we have e to the power sigma 1 t, which becomes the real component, multiplied by e to the power j theta way. Okay, so r is equal r multiplied by e to the power j theta. So this r comes out to be the real form, which is equals to e to the power sigma 1 t and multiplied by e to the power j omega 1 t. Okay. Now from here, modulus of z, it is e to the power sigma 1 t, and phase of z, it is given by omega 1 t. Okay. So these are the two important criteria which we need to remember. Now we need to look into the relationship between the Laplace transform and the z domain when we will be designing a filter using the impulse invariant method. Okay, so we are discussing about two planes Okay, so one is the S plane and the second is the Z plane. Now if you look over here from this equation, so if modulus of sigma 1 it is less than 0, so if you look into the S plane, then what happens? If sigma 1 is less than 0, that means we are on the negative left hand side of the plane. Okay, and if we put it over here, so what we would get? This component would be less than unity, right? Now when it is less than unity, that means all the locations on the left hand side will be plotted within the unit circle. Similarly, if sigma 1 is equal to 0, then in that case we will be on the imaginary axis over here, and when it is 0, our amplitude is 1, and where is our amplitude is 1? It is on the unit circle. Okay, so when sigma is 0, these points will be mapped onto the unit circle, and lastly, when sigma 1 is greater than 0, then we are on the right hand side of the S plane and it would map to the outside on the unit circle, right? So in that case we will be having the right hand plane, it would be mapped outside the unit circle. Okay, so this is the criteria, and if we remember the stability criteria for the digital filter, which we studied during our initial days while we started the digital filter designing. Over there we have discussed that if you want to design a stable digital filter, the left hand plane should be mapped into the unit circle. Okay, so in the left hand plane we can left hand side of the plane of the S plane we can only place the poles. So if the analog filter it is having all the planes all the poles on the left hand side, then those poles will be mapped within the unit circle. Okay, within the unit circle. Sorry. So all the planes would be all the poles would be mapped into the unit circle if all the poles of the analog filters they are present on the left hand side of the plane, right? So by analyzing our previous informations and by looking into the interrelationship between the S plane and the Z plane, while we try to implement the impulse invariant method for the designing of the digital filters, we can see if the analog filters which we are trying to emulate they are stable in nature, then the digital filter would also be stable in nature, right? And this is an important thing. So all the impulse invariant all the filters designed by the impulse invariant method, they are stable filter if the analog filter which we are emulating it is stable in nature. Okay, I hope it is clear to you guys up to this point, right? If anyone is having any problem, please stop me. So this is what we say, we find over here that if you have a stable analog filter, then we will be having a stable digital filter. Okay. Now let us look into the relationship between the analog frequencies and the digital frequency. Okay. Now from our previous knowledge we can see that Z is equal to R multiplied by e to the power j omega, and we also know that Z is equal to e to the power st. Okay, but both these components they are Z, so due to this reason we can equate these two components. So while equating these two components we get R multiplied by e to the power j omega, it is equal to e to the power sigma t multiplied by e to the power j omega t. Okay, this analog frequency, this is the analog frequency omega, right? Now by comparing the real parts we get R equals to e to the power sigma t, and digital frequency it is equal to analog frequency multiplied by time period. Okay. Now this equation it gives us the relationship between the digital frequency and the analog frequency. From here we can map we can also calculate the analog frequency, which is given by digital frequency divided by capital T. Okay. The takeaway point from here is that analog frequency is directly proportional to omega. But since the analog frequency is directly proportional to omega, there is a problem over here also. Now what is the problem? The problem is analog frequency, it varies from minus infinity to infinity, and our digital frequency, it varies from 0 to 2 pi. Okay. Now when we are varying this digital frequency from 0 to 2 pi, so what happens if we go beyond the 2 pi? So if we look into the Z plane, what we saw, if we go from 0 to 2 pi, beyond this 2 pi, we will again be repeating on the same points, even though for the namesake we will be increasing the what you call digital frequency, but we will be coming on the same points. Okay, so there is a fallacy over here, and what is the fallacy? The fallacy is many to one mapping. On one hand, we are telling that the analog frequency is directly proportional to digital frequency. That's good. So that should be one-to-one mapping. However, due to the limitation in the digital plane, that is the Z plane, we come to a condition where we are having many to one mapping. Many to one mapping. Okay. So what will happen because of this? Now this pi by 2, this point, if it is considered, if it is a pi by 2 and this one say pi, they will not be having only pi by 2 or pi. So say this is 2 pi, then this point would be say 3 pi, again this point would be say 4 pi, again this point minus 1 point, it will be 5 pi, the 2 pi region it will again be having this 6 pi, and so on. So you can see, even though we would be increasing the analog frequencies, we would be rotating in the digital plane on the same points, and this creates the condition of this many to one mapping. And when such a condition appears, there is this overlapping of the frequencies, and this overlapping of frequencies is nothing but your aliasing of the signal components. Okay. Now to eliminate that, we have already talked that the analog frequency needs to be band limited when we try to design the digital filter. Okay, band limited to what? FM. Now there is a very interesting question. We have band limited the signal FM over here. Okay, but if you look into the Z plane, at 2 pi we have Fs. How this is coming? How this Fs is getting incorporated into the signal? Can anyone tell me what is happening? Anyone? Though we have band limited the analog frequency to FM, while we want to process it through the digital filter, but in practicality we also get Fs within the digital system. How it is coming and why it is coming? Anyone who can help me out?
complex frequency.
Darshan Ghor,
Yes, sir.
yeah, please tell me. Can you repeat the question? What I have asked?
Sir, that we band limit the maximum up to maximum frequency, maximum analog frequency. So how we how we put the sampling frequency, which is the 2 FM,
Okay.
2 FM.
Okay, Revati.
Sir,
Yes.
I don't know the reason exactly.
Okay. Rima Kalita.
Yes, sir. So even I don't know the exact reason.
Rama. Ramakrishna.
Sir, I don't know.
So my question was, we are band limiting the analog frequency to FM, but in digital filters, while we are designing, we have a maximum frequency of Fs. So we have to accommodate this. Now why this comes? The thing is that when you are sampling the analog frequency or the analog signals, so what happens over there is that you are modulating another frequency Fs. Okay, so what is called sampling period or sampling frequency. So there is an additional frequency which you are modulating with the maximum frequency, and hence you have to keep a space for the sampling frequency, because when it will be entering, when your sample signal will be entering the digital domain, they will have to, that sampling frequency have to be accommodated, right? And due to this reason, we have sampling frequency as at the 2 pi radians. Okay. Now, so as per this, what you call impulse impulse invariance method, impulse invariance method, we have the important transformations which you need to keep in mind. The first one we have already discussed, and these are for the distinct poles. Second one, 1 by s plus pi to the power n, for if you are having this kind of poles, then which basically means that you are having multiple poles, then you have to use the second equation or the transformation. However, if you are having complex poles like this one, s plus a divided by s plus a whole square plus b square, or b by s plus a whole square plus b square, if you are having this type of poles which are basically regarded as the complex poles, then you have to use either the third equation or the fourth equation depending upon your question type. Okay. Now let us take some examples based on this. So herein we are given with a transfer function Hs, which is given by 1 by s square plus 5s plus 6. Okay. All pole filters. So if you see, this is an all pole filter. Okay. Now if you want to break down the denominator, we can break it down as s plus 2 and s plus 3. Now what we can do, using the partial fraction, we can break this transfer function into this form, a divided by s plus 2 plus b divided by s plus 3. Now from here, after doing the partial fraction, we can simplify this equation to this form, 1 by s plus 2 minus 1 by s plus 3. Okay, and but if you look into the transformations over here, it is in the form of 1 by s minus of pi. So we can break it down into 1 by s minus of minus 2 minus of 1 by s minus of minus 3. Now we can apply the transformation because it is in the form of distinct poles. So you apply it, and since nothing is given over here, so we can consider that t is equal to 1 second, and just by putting these values over here and simplifying this, we get the transfer function over here. Okay, this is how you can get this thing, get the digital filter, transfer function for the digital filter, okay, using the impulse invariance method. Now you have to check your question. If it says that you need to realize the filter, then you have to further simplify this hz and then realize the filter. Okay. Now coming to the next question, the same way, if we are given with hs is equal to 2 by a square plus 8s plus 15, we can break it down into this form. Then we apply the partial fraction, and we get the elements, and then we can apply the transformation equation, and we get the transfer function over here. Okay. Now there is another equation, another type of thing where you have hs given by 10 divided by s square plus 7s plus 10, and herein we are given with t is equal to 0.2 second. In such cases, what we need to do is that we need to apply the transfer function, but in the case of this hz, there will be a multiplier of t, and this multiplier of t, it is being implemented when there is a high sampling rate. Okay. As a matter of fact, if your capital T, it is less than 1 second, then we can include this factor t in your equation, and we can solve the numerical accordingly. Okay. So anywhere where you find that your capital T is less than 1, apart from applying the this distinct pole transformation, you need to also multiply it with the capital T. Okay. And accordingly, after doing that, you can find out the transfer function of the digital filter. Okay. Then in the next now in the next question, we have convert the analog filter with system transfer function, which has been given by hs equal to s plus 0.1 divided by s plus 0.1 whole square plus 9. Okay. So in this case, if you see that you are having all these equations something like this, then you have applied, you solve this. After solving this, you get this kind of equation, s plus 0.1 divided by s minus or minus 0.1 plus j3 and so on. Then you apply the partial fraction. Okay, and after partial fraction, you calculate these values, you get this thing, and after you get this thing, you apply the hz. Okay. This thing, you find the hz. It's quite okay, something like this. Okay. When you solve this, you will be getting the answer. And herein, please keep in mind, while you are solving this equation, please check that your calculator, it is in the radians mode. Many students, they do mistake over here. Okay, they keep the calculator in the degree mode, and it might be creating, you will be getting a wrong answer. Okay. Another important thing, if you see this equation, h is equal to s plus 0.1 divided by s plus 0.1 whole square plus 9. And if you go to the previous slide, if you see, we are having a direct transformation equation. You can apply this direct transformation equation also to solve this numerical. Whatever way you feel like, you can implement the thing. Okay. Right? However, if it would have been only b, suppose if I give it this 0.1 divided by s plus 0.1 whole square plus 9, then in that case, this fourth equation, it will 0.9 b, this 9. Okay. P square, 3, it would be 3, sorry. This would be 3 because b square, so this is 3 square. So if I give this equation like this, then you need to apply the fourth transformation. Okay. So these are some of the things, and with this we complete the this impulse invariant method. If you have any questions, you may ask, and otherwise you can try to solve this. We are still left with 10 minutes. You may please try to solve this equation in the 10 minutes. Okay. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask me.